Good morning, everyone. Hi, welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk about work for hire in the gaming industry. My name is Simon. I'm the new project lead at Flanders DC for our projects in the gaming industry. And today I'll be the host of this webinar. So hi, everybody. In a minute, I'll be passing the word to our two guest speakers. But first, as always, some practical information. In this webinar, we have a chat room. You probably have seen it already on the right-hand side of your screen. There you can say hi, like Philippe already did. Hi, everybody. We also have a questions tab, and that's the place you want to post your questions. If you have any during the webinar, then you can ask those in that tab. You can also see the questions of other people, and if you see a question that you like or that you also want to be answered, then you just hit the small triangle next to the question to give it an upvote. So in that way, we see which questions are the most interesting. I'll be monitoring the questions, and at the end of the webinar, I'll pass them on to the speakers during the Q&A session. Then, as a last remark, the speakers will also be using a slide deck. No need to copy those. You will be receiving the slide deck as a download if you complete the evaluation survey in the end. Not in the end, in the afternoon. We will be sending it by email. So normally you will get that by this afternoon. Okay. That's all, I think, and it should be time for our speakers. We have two guests today. The first one is Jeroen Janssen from Happy Volcano. The second one is Timo Vanherbergen from Triangle Factory. They both run a game studio and also both have quite some experience with work for hire, so that's great. How they do this, what they've learned so far, that's what they will be talking about. So, Jeroen, if you're ready, I would like to pass the word to you. There you go. You can start sharing your screen.
Let me try sharing my screen. Share.
There you go. That's perfect.
All right. Good. Morning, everybody. I'll be talking a little bit about the tips, advice, and secrets and other stuff that I wanted to know sooner. But we'll get to those later. So first up, this is sort of our client list, or part of our client list. As you can see, it's a mix between smaller, probably unknown for a lot of you, brands or companies, and some big media companies and everything in between. There's a reason for these kinds of clients, and we'll come back to that later, but we, as Happy Volcano, we focus on animation studios, broadcasters, and advertising agencies. And why that is, I'll explain in a minute. So my name is Jeroen Janssen. I'm the managing director and founder of Happy Volcano. I'm also a board member of the Flemish Game Association. I'm also on the advisory board creativity at Leuven Mindgate. I used to work in advertising as an account manager. I've worked for Boondoggle, which is a big advertising agency, for 13 years before starting our studio. And I have more than 10 years experience as a project manager and account manager. I love doing biz dev. It's my jam. It's also the only thing that I do at the company. I don't do code, I don't do art. I can focus solely on producing and finding clients and looking for opportunities there. I want to go over these again because all of them have impact on how we do our work for hire. So because I'm a managing director, I need to find some work because I need to pay people at the end of the month. The board membership of Vlega is something that gives us reputation as a company. If I meet a new client first and I say I'm the managing director, but I'm also the board member of the Flemish Game Association, that immediately gives me some reputation. And that's important to build up that reputation to find new clients. The advisory board position gives me access to the local companies. Leuven Mindgate is a sort of organization for tech, high tech, health, and creativity companies in Leuven, and to bring them together. So it's a perfect place for me to find new clients. I used to work in advertising as an account manager for 13 years. I don't know if you know, but advertising is sort of a high turnover sector. Like people stay in the company for 2 to 3 years. That means if you work in 13 years, that you meet a lot of people. So I have a big network there, which helps me a lot. Experience as a project manager. I know I've made all of the mistakes that you can make. So here are they, or at least the advice I can give you in finding new clients and working and doing work for hire. So your mileage may vary. I have, as if you're a new studio and you just finished your education, you obviously don't have that network and that reputation yet. So take everything I tell with a grain of salt. And try to find the truths in there that work for your studio, like they did for mine. So a little bit about Happy Volcano. We are a game studio. We've got 3 streams of revenue. We have our own IP games, The Almost Gone, You Suck at Parking. Those are our own projects. They mostly take more than a year. We do work for hires in games. That's our projects that take up to 6 months. And then we do some apps and websites, and those are projects that take up to 3 months, generally speaking, of course. That means I've got a few Tetris blocks to fill in my planning, which is important because every hour that your people are not working on a work for hire project, they cost a lot of money. So we're a profitable company. From fiscal year 1, we never made a loss, and that is due to work for hire. That's also something that we said that we were going to do from the start. So we've started our companies when we were late in our 30s, so there was not an option to go on a shoestring. We needed to make money from the start because we all have houses to pay and so on. So yeah. That's also something, the way we did this is because we started the company in 2013, December, and we only transitioned to a full-time studio in 2017. So that gave us 3 years to build up a war chest by doing client work and so on, and then going like a full-time studio with a lot of clients already. So I wouldn't advise to start immediately. I would first work for company and then do your side job in games and build up a reputation and some money's there. So finding clients was the most asked question, I think, or is the most asked question. How do you find clients? There is no easy way. It will be the first one will be the most difficult one because you don't have the reputation, you probably don't have the network, you don't know where to find it. So it is the most difficult one to find, the first one, but the good thing is that it gets easier from there because you have that you already did a project, so you can talk to other clients, say, I see what I already did, and that's easier sell than I have nothing to show for myself. So it is the most difficult one, but it's also very satisfactory if you get that first client. So how do you find it? Well, it's all about the hustle. The clients will not come to you unless you have some sort of a reputation. So at least at first, they will not come to you. So you have to hustle and keep your eyes open, your eyes peeled, and just spot opportunities everywhere. And we'll go over some of them that I use in finding jobs for us. But the first thing, and I talked about it a little bit in the beginning, is you need to find your niche. It's going to be much easier for you to focus on certain technology, a certain sector, a certain game type, than say, oh, we do everything in games. So a technology could be a VR, a sector could be, for us, it's the animation industry. A game type could be, I love making educational games. And just if you focus your attention to that specific niche, it makes it easier to sell. It makes it easier to go to events that cater to that niche. It's going to make it easier for you to find clients. But you also need to see that you like to do what your niche is, because you're gonna do a lot of these types of jobs. And if you don't like what you're doing, if you just don't like VR, or you get sick from VR, then why would you torture yourself and do that? So yeah, the biggest thing I think is your network. At least for me, it was. I'm not really good at the networking part, so put me in a room of strangers and trying to sell my wares. That's not gonna work for me. So I rely heavily on my network that I built up over the years. And I also like to do a lot of events, like the Meet to Match, go to Gamescom, go to GDC, and just have meetings with all different kinds of people, potential clients or publishers or whatever you need, and that's something that I'm good at. Put me into a pitch situation and I can do it good, but the networking part is not for me. And that's something that maybe you're good at, and then I would take total advantage of that. This is just my way of working. So this is, I think, one of the easiest things to spot opportunities is social selling. Make a reputation on LinkedIn, on Twitter, about your specific niche or what you can do, but also look at your feeds, because a lot of people are asking, oh, I'm looking for this of this, or do you know a company that does that? And then you can immediately jump on that opportunity and get some work from there. We've got quite a few jobs of just seeing somebody asking for a website or for a game, and just contacting them and getting the job after. Another easy one to get some jobs is work for other game studios. Not all game studios have the same pool of talent. So if you're really good at shaders or you're good at music or whatever, go talk to other studios, see what they need, and maybe you can work together and they can pay you as your first client. Co-productions is also one that we are using a lot, mostly in animation studios. So an animation studio has a property. We have the game knowledge, so we bring both together and we do a co-production. It's not really work for hire because you invest yourself as well, but the end goal is to make money, and a co-production will bring you some money. You can also do pitches and tenders. Have to be a little bit careful with these ones. So if you don't know what a pitch is when a government or a big company or a big brand says, we need a new game, or we need a new website, or we need a new whatever they want, and they give the opportunity to different companies to apply, to pitch for it. And mostly they have some sort of a pitch document that you need to read, and then some sort of a question or an ask, which you need to sort of give a proposal to, give a budget and a timeline. And you never know if you're going to make it or not, because you're pitching against other companies. So you can potentially do a lot of time or put a lot of time in it and not get the job. And you will almost never get paid for the pitch itself. Or if you get paid, it's like a measly amount of money. So you have to be really careful. You also have to see that the pitch is really a pitch, because some pitches are already decided before the pitch goes out, which company they're going to work. So they can be good because it's mostly big projects with a lot of money there, but potentially you put in a lot of time as well. So be careful with pitches. If all else fails, use a business agent. That's very late when I found out that these people exist. So they have a big network of clients and a big network of game studios, and they're gonna try to find a match between them. They mostly work on a no cure, no pay base. So if they don't find you a job, you don't have to pay them. But if they find you a job, they'll mostly take 5 to 10% on the budget. sometimes more, sometimes less. Depends on your negotiation and the business agent in question. So, okay, you find a job, you find a client, or you find like what we call like a cold lead. So people that don't know you, but you think, oh, this brand, they need a game, or you spot an opportunity somewhere. So the most important thing there is to find your guy, gal, whatever, in the company, to see who makes the decision of hiring you. And that's not always the CEO. That can also be somebody in lower management or a project manager, but you have to find a person that it will be able to hire you and make that decision, because there's nothing worse than investing a lot of time talking to somebody, and then in the end they say, yeah, I think it's really cool, but I can't make that decision, I have to ask my boss. Or no, then you have to talk to the boss and not to this person. Know what they need, find out what makes them decide. They have a problem inside of the company, or they have a problem that they need a game for, or there's politics involved, something, whatever. Know what they need and cater to that. Give them that the thing they need, and that's not always a good budget or a good project. Could mean anything. It just you need to find out what they actually need besides you giving a good job. So it's a client relationship, and it's a relationship because it's between humans. You're not working for the company. You're actually working with the person. So you need to make their lives easier. But it's also something that spans beyond the project. So if your project's finished and you did a good job, and all of a sudden a month or 2 months later you find a good article that really matches that client or that job or that problem that he had, forward it to them. It's building that relationship, because that person is now at company A, but it's not to say that they can go to company B and bring you with them. Is building those relationships. That's also very important in the long run, because what you want to do, what you want to get to, is that you get some recurring clients. So these are the best kind of clients, because they come to you again and again and again with new jobs, and you don't have to prospect, you don't have to put time in there. They trust you. So these are very good clients. Treat them nicely. They're their holy grail, or your golden keys, I guess, in this case. So, okay, you find your clients. How do you go about getting to the project itself and getting the budget and approved and so on? So the first thing you need to ask them, and I think it's very difficult for us as Belgians, because we're not used to talk about money, and certainly not in these cases, but you have to ask for their budget. You have to know how much money they have and they can spend. And there's several reasons, but one of the main reasons is that clients don't always realize what game development costs. So their expectations might mismatch their money. So ask for the budget. It's a plain, simple question. Sometimes they will not answer it, or will probably not like to answer it, but you need to keep pushing to try to find out their budget. If they definitely don't want to say it and absolutely do not like to say it, it also is telling of the kind of client they are. Because, as I said, it's a relationship. You need to find like some sort of middle ground. But if they don't want to, for instance, what we do, if they don't want to say flat out, oh, I've got 10K, then probably we say, we can talk about, so we think this will be between 5K and 50K. Is this sort of in between your budget lines? And at least it's in that first call or in that first meeting that you already set sort of a budget estimation. without you doing a whole lot of work to make like a proper detailed budget and timeline. And then they say, oh, but I thought it would be 5K and you're coming with a budget of 50K. That's not possible for me. So ask for the budget. Pricing is another very, very broad topic that I'm not going to go into. Just know that not every client is worth the same. If you're working for a bakery, you're not going to charge the same hourly price than you are working for a big bank. The bakery is not gonna be able to pay pay you the amount you would want a bank, and the bank is gonna look at you really, really funny if you're gonna go, oh, we are 50 euros an hour, because they're used to paying a lot more money. So know what their budget range is, and estimate accordingly. We have different budget lists or pricing lists for different types of clients. You also need to know your cost per seat. Your cost per seat is sort of every cost you have for one person. So for the CEO, this will be a higher cost because his wage is higher. There's other stuff, and then for like a junior 3D artist, so that needs to be reflected in your budget as well. And then you go to your estimates, and this is, besides finding your first client, I think estimates is the hardest thing to do, because how do you estimate any project, let alone a game dev project? So this is experience, doing it a lot, but also measuring it. So if you have some kind of time logging tool, so you know how many hours you spend on a certain project, and then analyze those against your estimate. Where did you estimate it more? Where did you estimate less? And adapt next time. And it's just, you need to keep doing it and keep doing it before you actually get any good at it. And even then, you never know, but it's sort of a learning process, estimates. So if you got an estimate, so you send it to the client. It's called a quote. You will lose a lot of them, and that's fine. That's fine. Clients mostly ask a few companies, a few studios, and they can choose a studio for any number of reasons. It might be the budget. It might be that they don't like your face. It might be that they're in the same city. It might be any number of reasons why they didn't choose you. But it's very interesting for you to find out why. They're not always going to be honest about it, but ask why they didn't choose you, because you can only learn from it. If your budget is always too high, then you know that your estimations are maybe a little bit too high, or your scope is too big. So try to find out why they didn't choose you. Also, if you win all your quotes, and that's also possible, but then you're definitely too cheap. So take that into account as well. And then hopefully you'll get the job. And what do you get out of the job? It's either monies or fame, and preferably both. But can be one or the other. So sometimes you get a lot of money, but there's an NDA, so you can put it on your website. Or sometimes it's a very good client to put on your website, what we call in Dutch etalageklanten. And they don't pay you a lot of money, but they give you so much reputation because it's a big brand or whatever. So there's a balance you need to make, or at least you have to take into account that fame is also good. Just don't burn yourself. But yeah, preferably there's good money and you can put it on your website, and those clients bring you new clients. We talked a little bit about reputation. This is, I think, the one that you don't have when you start out, but you need to build up. It's super important. And building reputation, you do by getting clients, but also the social selling we talked about, giving advice or writing articles, or we have a white paper on our website that builds your reputation and makes a client choose for you, because they think, oh, see, they have these kinds of clients, or they talk a lot about this in their blog post, and that's really smart to do. So then they come to you. It's something that you need to earn, and you need to show it off, because modesty will get you nowhere. You need to show off how good you are, and you don't have to, oh, we're a small indie studio and we made a little game. No, you're good at what you do. Show it, just don't overblow it or don't lie or cheat, because that will be found out absolutely fast. So yeah, for us, when we choose a project, we gotta love it. We got to love the project, because no love for us is guarantee for a bad game. If it's just for the money, then we're probably not going to make a good game. But if we really love the brand or the property or whatever we're making a game of, or we think it's important to do, we have some non-for-profit clients as well. They don't make a lot of money for us, actually. They probably will lose a little bit of money off, but it's love for the project, and it's reputation building. So that's important. Another side note is clients are a huge R&D opportunity, because they pay you money for your learning time. So when you propose something for a client, try to always sneak in some stuff that you're not used to or you have never done before. Just to have that opportunity to do some research on the matter. Can be a new tool, can be a new, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Another tip I would give you is set a minimum contract amount as soon as possible. I know in the beginning you're gonna take every client because you just need the money, but as clients keep coming in, you need to set like a minimum bar. So we don't. I don't know. You say I don't do clients or budgets that go below 5K or below 10K or whatever you're comfortable at the time, because smaller budgets, smaller projects, they cost more money overhead than bigger projects. So whenever you have the opportunity to set a minimum contract amount, do that, and it's gonna cost you a lot of headaches less. But yeah, in the end, there's only one big tip, and that's fake it till you make it. Everybody else is. It's just a matter of showing off, peacocking, and doing a good job with the clients you have, and then making more money. So yeah, this is my presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeroen. It was very clear to me. I hope so for everyone else, but I think so because I also saw some questions and reactions, and it was really good. So thank you very much. In the meantime, I'm trying to pass the word to Timothy. He should be joining. There you go. Hi, Timo.
Hello.
Hi. If you want, you can start sharing your screen already. We
Yep.
had some technical issues before, but
Let me see. Yep.
normally that should work. I was wondering, while Timo is busy, Jeroen, I have a question for you. You were talking about how the first customer, it probably will be necessary that you hustle a bit. What was your first customers? If you don't want to say the name, maybe just the type of customer.
I'm not going to say the name, but our first customer was actually while we still worked in the advertising agency. We worked at the Horn, which is sort of a big building, office building in Leuven with a lot of companies. And the word spread around there that we did some games, and one of the other studios needed to find a game studio, and just like by haphazard coincidence that we were there in the right place at the right time.
Okay. Great. All right, we can see your screen, Timo. It is.
Yep.
I will.
Yeah, I will put it on full screen.
Okay, great. Okay. Then I'll pass you the word. Thank you.
All right. Is it full screen now?
This is perfect. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Timo Vanherbergen. I'm the managing director of Triangle Factory. To give you an idea about Triangle Factory, we are an independent game developer. We were founded in 2010, so we've been doing it quite long, actually. We're actually also one of the founders of Vlega, and also still a board member. But when we actually started, Vlega didn't exist yet, and we were actually, I think, the smallest company when Vlega got founded. The smallest company that was co-founder, so to speak. We were very very happy that we were chosen to be one of the co-founders for Vlega, because back in those days we only just started, so it was a bit of a compliment for us that they asked us to do that. Right now we are at 24 full-time employees. Over the last 3 years, most of our growth has happened. I think we've been with 6 to 7 people maybe in those first 6-7 years, and then our growth really took off the last 3 to 4 years, I would say. We are based in Ghent. And currently our main focus is mostly mobile and XR. So to give you an idea of the kind of work that we do, we kind of have 3 technology verticals, and then we have kind of like 2 verticals in the type of projects that we do. So in terms of technology and verticals in technology, we focus on mobile, AR, and VR. Whereas mobile and VR are probably the 2 biggest ones, and whereas actually VR has seen the most growth over the last few years. I think right now 70% of our revenue is actually coming from VR, while mobile and AR, which are often linked to each other, because I guess the biggest AR platform right now is actually ARKit and ARCore from Apple and Google, so kind of mobile as well. So that's probably the remaining 25%, and then like 5%, which is completely different platforms like web or something else. As I said, we kind of have like 2 kind of verticals as well in terms of like the projects that we do. We have entertainment projects that we do, and then enterprise projects, if you look at it, you know, from a really big overview of the type of projects. So you kind of need a strategy if you're building a gaming company to survive, and we've kind of did that from the beginning on. We realized that a lot, like building games, costs a lot of money. I think the advantage of working out a strategy that works for us was that, to be honest, FUF funding wasn't available yet. The game fund of FUF wasn't there yet. And so getting money for games was something that we kind of had to figure out for ourselves. And so over the years, our strategy has been to do work for hire, use our knowledge and our know-how in game tech, and then reinvest that money into our own IP, or at least projects where we have a revenue share or an IP share, and that can build up our portfolio of our own games as well. So that actually has been working over the last few years, but it's definitely a long road if you do it that way. Just realize that your first game is probably not going to be a success. Your second game might not be a success. I mean, it's possible, but the chances are rather slim. I always compare the gaming industry to the movie industry, a lot more to the movie industry than the tech industry, actually, because 8 in 10 games fail, and 2 of them make up for all of the other ones, which is very similar to the Hollywood industry, where 8 in 10 movies actually fail, and then 2 of them make up for all of the rest. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Don't give up too easily if you're doing this kind of strategy. We had some tough years in the beginning. I mean, we never had, we actually never had a true loss, or I mean, we were kind of break even, but of course we didn't earn that much in the beginning, in the first years, and also so it takes quite a while to build up that client base, to have I mean, once you have that client base and once you have that portfolio, of course, it becomes easier. People even start contacting you yourself. But still, that doesn't mean that you don't have to do sales anymore. We still do sales. To give you an idea, I think someone at the company is always at least full-time. Even if it's not me, someone else is doing work basically for sales or for marketing purposes, or at least to get like new clients. There's always something happening or going on in that perspective. It costs time and it costs money to do that. So just don't forget, that's actually, I think, one of the biggest fails for a lot of companies, is that they underestimate the importance of sales or business development, as you would call it. So yeah, just don't give up on that perspective, and just invest your time and money into that. So as Jeroen also said, there's really two good reasons why you would do this kind of strategy. First of all, clients kind of pay for your R&D. They'll often ask you stuff that you haven't done before. They'll ask you things that that you really need to kind of like find out yourself. You're working in the gaming industry, so you're often solving problems that nobody has solved before, or at least that you haven't solved before. And even though your clients might own the IP, the knowledge and the know-how that you build up, that's something that you keep. You can use the stuff that or the know-how that you've built up for your own projects, maybe in a totally different way than you'd use it for your clients. But then again, it's really interesting because your clients actually pay for the time that you've spent researching certain things. So that's definitely a really good reason to do work for hire. And then, of course, the second one, which made sense, which I've already talked about a little bit, is that your clients finance your product. So if you do it smart and you put on the right amounts and budgets on your projects that you sell, then you should be able to make some money on those, and that money that you can use to reinvest into your own products. So that's something that we've been doing for quite a while. In terms of our own products, these can be games, but these can also sometimes be enterprise products. We are sometimes also looking in towards interesting products to build that might not be actual games. The thing is that we do very specifically only game technology. If a client comes to us and asks for something else than game, then that actually doesn't justify using a game engine or anything, then we often kindly say no to that, and maybe do a reference to some other party that we know who builds like a website or a responsive website or an actual app. So that's also a point that I'm going to discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, so these are, I guess, the two big advantages of doing this strategy. So now, how do you find clients? That's actually a really good question, and definitely it's definitely more difficult when you're starting than when you're already doing this for quite a while. As Jeroen also mentioned, after a while you build up a network, you build up a portfolio, and you build up like big names of clients or projects that you can use as a reference. So that it starts to become easier after a while. But then again, you have to keep on investing that time and money into sales, even if you're already doing this for a long time. You already have quite a bit of projects running. I guess never underestimate that you have to keep doing this. Also, don't stop doing it while you have some project running, because if that project stops, then it often takes a couple of months before you actually find a new client. So if you keep on doing it, then you can make sure that you have new clients coming in when those other ones or those other projects are stopping. So maybe the first tip is attend events. This can be industry events, but they don't necessarily need to be industry events. They can be other type of events, or maybe other types of industry events, in terms of like, they don't need to be like gaming industry events, but they can be events of an industry, for example, that you're looking to break into. So for example, if you're interested in doing virtual reality for real estate, which is something that we don't really do, but we have other competitors, so to say, or agencies that we even sometimes work with, that are in that real estate segment, and that are going for like VR in real estate, well, then you have to attend those events. I think the one that's actually, I think, the one that's for me the most critical one, and that I've also seen some companies like make mistakes on, is not being present on those events. I mean, after a while, sometimes you can say like, okay, this event is not going to be interesting for us this year, or we really have enough to do and we have to do other stuff. Then you can sometimes, I mean, there are sometimes arguments of not being at those events, but really, to be honest, these events can mean a lot to you. And also even the gaming industry events can be really useful for work for hire. First of all, you'll find other studios who might need people to work with. But then again, even people from other industries who are looking into using game tech for their company to build a solution or some kind, they might attend these industry or gaming industry events as well. To give you like a good example, I'm not going to name the client, but one of our best clients right now is someone who I met at GDC. And I know it sounds really scary going to GDC as a starting company. It costs a lot of money. I remember like paying the hotel for a couple thousand of euros, and then you start questioning yourself: I need that $2,000 GDC ticket, or do I do it with an Expo pass? Yeah, just be there. You don't need the most expensive pass, to be honest. Most of the time we don't take those expensive GDC passes. You can take a GDC Expo pass, and just also for if you want to see the lectures, to be honest, you can just buy a GDC All Access online pass or something. I'm not sure if that's the exact name, but there's this like 500 euro pass that you can buy, and then you can see all the sessions afterwards online. And it's good because you can see them afterwards, so you can actually spend time networking at GDC instead of going to sessions, which is actually really important if you want to do sales, which is, I think, the most important one. The Expo Pass only costs like $300. So I think the biggest cost is probably your flight and your hotel. But to give you an idea, 2 years ago, we met a client there who's spending about more than 1 million a year at our company right now, which is, yeah, just great. We've grown a lot because of that client, of course. But also keep in mind, one thing that I want to say with that is keep doing sales, because you want other clients as well. You don't want to depend on one client, because it's also not a very healthy thing for a company. He gets too much power over your company otherwise. But yeah, so keep in mind, do attend these events. Most, to be honest, I think 50 to 60% of our clients, of our really good clients, came from attending events and meeting them there. So then the second one is contact them directly. That's definitely also a really big one for us, to be honest, and it works pretty well, not always. You can do this by email. You can do this by using LinkedIn. I do have a LinkedIn premium account. To be honest, I wouldn't really advise on getting it, because, to be honest, I actually use it fairly less than I would expect it to. I could probably live without it. You can actually send a lot of connection requests and short intros through those connection requests, actually, to introduce yourself. But contacting people directly is something that has worked for us as well. But you have to do it right. Just don't contact them like with a general email saying like, oh, if it feels like you're sending an email to 100 people and it's the same email to those 100 people, it won't work. You really have to do something very personally, make it personal. Think about their business and think about what you can mean for them. But yeah, contacting them directly is definitely something that we do as well. And also keep in mind, sometimes you have to do this more than one time. They might not respond. They might like take your connection request on LinkedIn, but then not respond on your actual email or actual message that you send them. Try to do this a couple of times, not too fast. But a lot of people actually only react when they've seen your request or your message a couple of times. Just don't spam them, which can also be counterproductive. But yeah, just message them maybe like after a while, a couple of weeks, ask them like, have you seen my message? Maybe they were just too busy, which also sometimes happens. And it takes a couple of times before they actually respond. So what's also important when you contact people directly, or even when you meet people at the events, try to find the decision makers in the company, because you can meet someone from a potential client, or you can meet some online or at an event, but that doesn't mean that they're actually a decision maker in the company. So it's really important to find those people that actually make the decisions and kind of like decide on the budgets and things like that. It's good to make that first connection with someone else, but maybe try to like get that contact with those decision makers through those people that you've met in the first place, because eventually those are the people who are going to decide on it. It's good, like, for example, if you're doing a project in enterprise, maybe like in a manufacturing company, it can be interesting to talk to an engineer to find out what kind of solutions or kind of problems that they have, or something that you can build for them. But eventually, in the end, it's probably the manager that's going to decide. It's probably also good that the engineer is on your side of doing something or like approving the project, but eventually it's going to be the decision maker who's going to be deciding on the project. And so if you're not talking to the right person, you might be wasting your time. So that's also a tip that I want to give you. And then learn about their business. I think that's really an important one. Try to learn how they work. Try to learn what they do. Try to learn what's important to them. I'm going to give like a short example a little bit later on, but it's really important that you build value for a client. So and often it's also interesting to know how their business works, what they do, how they do it, how their manufacturing process is. For example, if you're doing something in enterprise or manufacturing or in medical, how does it work? How do they train people, or how do they do specific things? Really try to find it out. It's the same as when you're going for a solicitation or an interview for a job offer. If you're not there without knowing what the company is doing or how they work, then you're not really going to make a good impression. And then I come to my next point is show or create examples. It kind of falls in line with this one as well. You have to show value to your client. What we often do, I'm not sure if I can go back. Yeah, okay. So what we often do with, sorry. Okay, it's not really reacting. So so to this point, like show or create examples. What we often do to actually get people to decide eventually if they want to do something with us is actually build a small prototype. We sometimes do this without actually asking money for it. Of course, it takes time and money to do this, but often just realize that these people that you're selling to, they don't know what the possibilities are of the technology that you work in. For example, some of our clients, we have a company that is a long-time client of us, Yori, for example. We've built a product configurator for them, and we've shown them a couple of years back what real-time VR, what real-time 3D can do instead of like pre-rendered 3D as a product configurator. Like a lot of car companies, for example, are using a really old school way of a product configurator, which is all pre-rendered. And we actually went to Yori and said like, well, we can do a product configurator that's real time, and you can actually digitalize your whole portfolio of interior design products, and you can show them in real time, and with real time you can do a lot of stuff when configuring something, and it's gonna be creating value in the long run. We showed them what the value was in doing that for the long run. So we kind of made like a really short example to show it off to them, and that kind of like took them to decide like, okay, this is something that we really need to invest it in. So sometimes it really makes sense to create like a small prototype to show a client what's possible with the technology that you're using or with the solution that you're trying to sell them. So that kind of like show value kind of fits into that previous one. Really build something that has value to them. It really needs to, if you're selling something to a company, a product that you have in mind, or like with Yori, for example, the product configurator, show that it has value in doing that. Sometimes you can actually also learn from the feedback from that client, because sometimes you think that you're offering something that has value, but it might not be the case. So I'm going to show an example of that, I think after this slide. And then the last one that I've already talked about a little bit is don't give up. Really know that the sales funnel takes pretty long. Definitely in what we've learned over the years is that the sales funnel in our business is actually a pretty long sales funnel. It takes quite a while because you're selling something that most of the time people don't know what they can do with that. A lot of people don't know what they can do with game technology, or with even a lot of people right now, like I said, 70% of our revenue is coming from VR. We still have that problem that we're running into this wall that people don't know what VR is. They haven't tried it. They haven't seen the potential. They often are skeptical about it. Something that we've had a problem with in the first few years of VR, and which is something that we still feel when selling VR or AR, is something called poisoning the well, where people have tried a bad VR experience. A lot of people, a lot of agencies, a lot of companies have tried selling VR to people with really bad examples, and people got sick from it. So, for example, I remember the time a couple of years ago. Basically, VR kind of came out. I mean, it already existed for a long time, but kind of got like traction again in 2012 with Oculus launching their first dev kit. And the problem was that a lot of people were showing off VR with, for example, a roller coaster demo at an event. It was like an eye catcher. It was a way to get people to your booth, but it was a really, really bad experience because it was an experience that would give you motion sickness. Like the first 5 seconds you're in there, you're sick. People tried it, and then when they've actually really need to try VR for something else at some point in our sales process, we often find that these people say like, oh, I don't do VR because I get sick from it. It's really not for me. I don't believe in it, which is a problem that we still face at this time because of that. Really don't give up. Try to explain that they might have done a VR experience that hasn't been like a really good one. So, or like even if you're not selling VR, really don't give up. Contact them a couple of times. Show them maybe an example. As Jeroen also mentioned, it doesn't need to be a prototype that you've built yourself. Sometimes you can show examples, or you find an article, or you find a video of something that can really be interesting for someone you've already been in contact with. You haven't maybe made that sale. And but you find an article that's really relevant to that company, just send it to them, and you might pick up that connection again and actually do that sale at some point. Then start small, think big. I think that's also an important thing to mention, is that a lot of companies or a lot of decision makers have a limited budget. As Jeroen said, it's interesting to find out what kind of budget that they have, because then you can like target your solution or your project that you're trying to sell within that budget. But then again, it's also a lot easier for companies to make the decision on something smaller than on something really, really big. But you have to think like in the long term for that company. Put yourself into the perspective of someone who's working at the company, and like I said, you need to create value for the company. So if a company needs to invest in something and that they can't use it for a long time, or it's like something that they basically it's a one-time off thing, then they often might not make the decision to do it. But if you build something small and you can say, like, for example, well, if you invest like this amount of money into it right now, then you can do these kinds of things over the long term. So for example, if you're building like a small VR solution that you first use maybe to show something internally in the company, but afterwards that thing can be used to build like a bigger platform with a lot more stuff, and that can be used as like a training tool or something else, while in the beginning it wasn't really used for that. That's something that a lot of companies really like, because they their first investment is something that they're going to try it out. So and if they try it out and it works, then that's really good for you, because then they'll probably have the tendency to invest more. And this is actually something that we've been doing with a lot of clients, a lot of the like really big clients where we now are working for, and that we basically work on a time and material basis. We've started out like really small with a very small scope, where we've built something like small but very useful to them, and then we kind of like continued on that small idea and made something that really has value for them in the long term. And some of these projects became like really, really big. So it's a really good approach of doing it that way. First of all, for the company, it's much easier to do that first investment with a smaller scope, and then in the long run, you can show them the potential of what you're doing. So to give you an example, and it's also like a really good example.
Sorry, I just wanted to let you know we're approaching 11 o'clock, so I don't know if you still have other slides after this one.
I'm almost there, so it's really not that long anymore. Okay. So I'll quickly go over this. So to give you a short example of, it's also a good example of upselling. This was a product configurator that we did for Iori. At some point, we tried to sell them VR for that product configurator, which totally didn't make sense for them, because they said like, well, nobody's going to buy a 4,000 euro chair when they're not able to sit in it. But then again, AR was like really interesting for them. So we've built like after the product configurator, we've upsold an AR version of that product configurator, which really made sense for them, because if you're selling that really high-end chair, you might want to see it in your living room. So that's an example of like continuing on something that you've sold to a client before. So upselling is also really interesting. Look at your existing clients. And then one more slide, and then I actually have a few more slides, but I'll quickly go over them. Don't work for agencies or work for agencies. This can be an interesting thing. If you're working for agencies, just keep in mind that you're often not going to be able to use it for portfolio material, but it can be interesting because agencies have, like the bigger agencies have a big sales channel. They get a lot of work. They often sometimes don't have the technical expertise. So in the beginning, it can be really interesting to create a relationship with them, but just keep in mind, maybe don't do it for that long. It's always more interesting to have a direct contact with your client, and that you cut out the middleman, because you basically are able to ask a lot more money for your projects if you cut out that middleman. Then how to balance IP and work for hire. I would say that's a really difficult one, to be honest. It's always difficult. But first of all, try to create separate teams. That's something that worked for us. And it makes sure that that you basically keep on working on your own IP while you're doing other projects as well. But it is difficult because your clients will always come in and ask maybe more resources, and it makes it difficult to keep your deadlines. So that's a second one tip that I would give you, is set deadlines for your own projects as well, so that you kind of consider them as important as your client projects, and that you try to keep those deadlines. And then in that perspective, if you're working on your own IP as well, and if you find clients who want you to do stuff for prices that you don't agree on, or with technology that you don't want to do, or don't try to accept everything, dare to say no on certain projects, either to protect your own projects or to make sure that you're not doing stuff that you don't want to do. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very, very much, both of you. I think they both were great presentations. I think also very complimentary, so that's exactly what we were looking for. I'm really glad we asked both of you.
Okay.
Should have some time for some questions now. It's actually past 11 already, but I see people are still asking questions, so we can maybe go into some of them. I already saw Jeroen answered some of the questions directly, which is great. So you could actually read his answers over there if you're interested. But there's just a new one by Ruben. I'm just going to read it out now. The issue of poisoning the well has been discussed regarding VR. Would this be a good example of an area where developing or researching examples comes in? If so, do you have any examples you could provide? I think that's for Timo, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think in VR, we really, when you're selling VR, I think the most important thing is getting people to experience VR and to experience it in a right way. It doesn't even need to be an example of yourself, but like showing them a good VR example and not the roller coaster one is already a big deal. And so, yeah, most of the time we try to build an example with maybe their logo, with the company logo already in there. That's something that you really like to see. Like we don't really spend a lot of money on those prototypes, but like maybe just a couple of like 1 or 2 days of development, like something really, really quick. We just say to them like, this is a prototype, just to make sure that you don't set the expectations too high for what you're showing. But VR is a really good example where you really need to try to get people in there before you can actually sell it. Yeah, totally agree on that. And VR is a really good example of that.
Okay, great. Another interesting question by Wouter. Jeroen already answered it, but the question was, what would you recommend regarding rates, hourly rate or fixed price? Jeroen, you already answered it a bit. I think you mostly use project prices, except for support or when you can work on time and material base. I am still wondering, how does Timothy do it?
For small stuff, we do fixed price. But to be honest, for the bigger projects, we always do time and material. To be honest, the best argument for time and material is actually, and this is something that I tell to all of my clients, is that with a fixed price, with a fixed budget, one of the parties will actually be in the disadvantage. Always one of them. Either I will estimate it way too much, so my client is actually paying more than he should be paying, or because like sometimes it's really difficult to estimate these things. You're doing stuff that you haven't done before. You're solving problems that you haven't solved before. It's really, you run into problems that you didn't expect. That's something that I try to explain to my clients, and sometimes a solution is built much faster than you realized, and sometimes it takes much longer. So if you do it on a fixed budget, then like it will probably maybe even out at the end, because some projects you will make a lot of money on because it went way faster than expected, and on some projects you lose money because it took you way longer than expected. But to be honest, with time and material, that's not the case. You kind of, I mean, you're paying for what for the actual work that's being done. The only thing is that you need to have a really good relationship with your client, and they need to trust you on that. So we really time track everything on the minute per minute, basically. And we just charge, basically every month we just send out the invoices based on our time tracking. And like, as I said, like with the start small, think big. So that first project to get them to invest is something that we often still do on a project basis, because it's the first time that we work together, and so they might like feel more comfortable knowing what they pay for in the end. So then we often still work with a fixed price, but after that we really try to get them to work on a time and material basis.
Okay, thank you. Very clear. Maybe a final question. We got one from Ruben again, which is great. For both speakers, how do you approach networking at events like GDC? Have you developed any strategies to do so? Maybe Jeroen first?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said in my presentation, I'm really bad at the networking part. So put me in a room with a stranger and I shut down. But I use the meeting systems, and I get a lot of value with that. And I apply for them very early on, and really every day go over the new people that come in there. Are they interesting for us? What do they want? And just make meetings. And my events are booked full most of the time from morning to night. And then after that, there's the parties, and there you run into some random people, and there it happens. But I don't have sort of a strategy for like running into random people. It's meetings.
It's random, so
yeah,
it should be random and strategyless. Okay, Timo?
I guess for me it's pretty similar. Try to use those meeting systems, set up a lot of meetings in advance. I often see people doing it way too late or way too early, so there's like this golden hour of doing it. Do it like maybe 1 month to 2 weeks in advance before the event starts, because if you do it too early, people will just say like, oh, we don't have our agenda set up yet, we're not doing it right now. And if you do it too late, their agenda is already fully booked. So it's kind of like finding that golden hour of using those meeting systems and setting up your meetings, which is really important. And then at the events yourself, just try to approach people. Also, one like really important one, and to be honest, actually, some of the best deals are being made on those kind of things, but go to the parties, and go to the after after the event kind of things, because actually it's way more interesting sometimes. People get a drink, you start talking quite more easily. You easily get an introduction from someone because you're standing at the group of people, and there's like half of the people you don't know yet. They introduce you and you start talking, and it's much easier to make that connection sometimes. And often we actually made the best networking approaches, or like the best deals on those kind of events actually, instead of the actual event itself. So that's also definitely a tip I want to give you.
Really interesting to know that events like GDC, not only to find a publisher, but also for work for hire, you have interesting opportunities there. So
yeah.
Great. Okay, I'd like to thank you all again. It's 11:10, so we need to stop. But before we end, I'd like to mention we also have some other webinars coming up on service design this Thursday, on brand identity in a few weeks, I believe. You can check them all out on our website. You can still subscribe for free, so that's interesting, I think. We also have a program, it's called FinMix, that I wanted to mention. It's a sort of a panel with professionals where you can pitch your financing needs. I could imagine some of you are in finance needs. You can pitch those to a panel with people of the banks, with investors. They will give you some free high-level feedback. You need to applicate, and the applications are running until this Sunday. So if you're interested, don't wait, just so you know. That's all for the promotional messages. Thanks a lot, Jeroen and Timo again. Don't forget, people, to answer our survey question that we will send you normally this afternoon. And that's all I wanted to say. So thanks a lot. I hope to see you again next time, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.